Hello and welcome to the Making Reggae Tutorial 1, where we're going to look at the basics of creating a reggae rhythm. In this tutorial we will be looking at the beat, the bass, the skank and the bubble. Don't worry if you don't know all of those terms, that's the point of the tutorial. Today I'll just be working in the piano roll of Logic Pro, but you can follow along in any music writing program easily, and even if you're recording instruments, the theory will be just as useful to you. Just to quickly give you a bit of context, I wrote a blog for a similar tutorial maybe 8 or 10 years ago, and it quickly became the #1 text-based tutorial for reggae on the internet, so this is the long-awaited video update to that. Let's get down to it, starting with the beat. So as you can see, I've already opened some instruments here to make things a little bit quicker. If you do happen to be working in Logic Pro, I recommend the 60s Soul if you want a kind of organic, old school style reggae. I think that drum kit works really well. But now, coming down here, we're going to look at the piano roll, and we're just going to start by laying out some hi-hats on the beat. So we've got hi-hat hits, closed hi-hat with the foot pedal, and open hi-hat to work with. So let's just lay out the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Simple as that. Now I'm only going to work in one bar for the drums, so let's just loop it here. The important thing to know about reggae, the first important thing to know about a reggae beat, is that it kind of revolves around the third beat. So what I'm going to do is just turn this up here. And then I'm going to take these two and turn them down a little bit, and then we've got a little bit of a groove going on, but it's just this. Okay, so the first type of reggae rhythm we can have is the one drop, and the one drop is very simple. You put bass drum on the third beat. I told you the third beat is important, and it is. Let's put that up so it's a nice strong bass drum, and usually the snare goes with it. There is some debate on the internet. I've had people tell me that it's actually the snare that creates the one drop, but this isn't true, and I'll explain why that is to you in a short while. Okay, so now just in case you don't know how that sounds, this is a one drop. Okay, it's a little bit sparse, so let's do a little more with the hi-hats. So what I think I'm going to do is maybe, instead of having them closed, make them open, add in some hi-hats that close like that. Let's listen to that. Okay, it's a little bit better. Let me think, what else can I do? Okay, so I think actually what I'm going to do is pull these back here and add in some closed hats here. And to make it interesting, let's let it pick up here. Okay, this is just me messing around with this. Obviously you can pull out your own beat in your own way with your own style, but this is just to get a kind of basic one drop beat that is something that we can work with to build a tune. Okay, so let's have a listen to this. That's got a bit more of a jive to it. So I'm also just going to turn everything down a little bit on the hi-hats. Okay, so like I said, this is called the one drop, and that's what it is, that the bass drum drops one time and it drops on the third beat. You might think, well, that's very simple, and it is, but don't be confused. You know, Bob Marley's drummer was very famous for his one drops. It's the classic bass of a reggae rhythm. Okay, so moving on from the one drop, we have the two drop, and it's as simple as it sounds. You take the bass drum and you put it on the first beat, and this is why this is obviously is about the bass drum, because what drops twice is the bass, not the snare. And you can do other things with the snare as well, but this is the basic two drop, simple as it sounds, a little bit more solid in the way that we have that first beat sounds. And I'm also going to, because it does revolve around the third beat, I'm also going to pull that one down a little bit so it doesn't overtake the rhythms. Yeah, okay, so that works. So that's a two drop, and just to illustrate that it is as well, when you when you take out the third beat, bass beat, this is called a half drop. This is a more poppy kind of version, okay? But we're not going to do that. That's a 2 drop. Then you have what's called steppers, not 4 drop, although it might be a good name for it as well. And that's it's usually used with heavier, more modern versions of reggae. And what you do is you just have the bass drum on every beat. Okay, simple as that. That is the basics of making a reggae beat. So have fun with that, and we are going to move on next to the bass. Okay, let's look at the bass next. Obviously I can't tell you what to play with your bass, but I can give you some ideas of how to get a good style. First thing to know about the bass is it's kind of the driving force of reggae. It's deep and woolly. What I've done here, actually setting up this bass, is I've given a classic old style amp, so if you're playing an actual instrument, try and use a classic style amp. If you have another music program, you might want to choose some kind of amp emulator that's classic. Turn down the treble, pump up the bass, maybe a bit of mids. I have a microphone option here. Just whack the microphone up close. You want a really sort of woolly, bassy sound, basically. Okay, so that's all I've done there. But moving on to actually creating a bass line. Now, again, bass lines can be quite simple in reggae. They can involve like 4 to 6 notes, really, often with pentatonic scales. Could be major, could be minor. So let's look at creating something. So I'm just going to start plotting out a tune. Often I would do this actually with a guitar. I would maybe create a bass line with guitar, transfer the MIDI over, and probably into something such as this Liverpool bass here. Okay, but let me just see if I can create something quickly. So listen to that. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, okay. So here's the thing to think about. Often the bass can be quite spacious, which means that there will be gaps. Unless you're doing like a more modern kind of sleng teng rhythm, or like maybe something closer to ragga or something like that. Often there are pauses in most parts of a reggae tune, actually. By most parts, I mean most instruments. Okay, often they use a bit of repetition. So here we're kind of repeating the same note 3 times, as often what happens when I'm in a piano roll. I got it wrong, I want it back on the same root notes of A there. Let's see how that sounds. Okay, sounds pretty good to me. So here we go. Let me just, yeah, I think it needs 2 here, doesn't it? And that needs lengthening, yeah, something like that. You'll find this is a very common style of bass progression, where you start by plucking around the root notes here in bar 1, bar 2 as well, but missing out the start to give it a more syncopated rhythm. So you'll start on the root notes, and then you can go up or down the scale after you've plucked on the root notes. Come back to the root notes, and then probably end up the other way that what you went the first time. If you went up, then down. If you went down, then up. There's not a lot more to say about that, really. I'm just going to go back to my drums and actually remove, make it a 2 drop rather than a steppers beat. Yeah, this should be some very chilled, soulful reggae today. So that's the basics of the bass. It's up to you to create your own bass melody, but I think it's important to start with the bass because it really does give you the melody and the kind of core of it. So let's move on to the next part, which is actually very important in creating a reggae rhythm, and that is the skank. So, what is the skank in terms of music? Well, it's that element in ska and reggae that gives it its unique feel. In most conventional types of music, most of the beat revolves around beats 1 and 3, which we call the downbeats, or all beats equally. But in reggae, it's important to pick out the upbeat, which is beats 2 and 4. So that's what we're going to do now. I've just got a piano open here. Normally I would play guitar straight in, but we're just using the piano roll here. So we'll start with one note and just see how that sounds over our rhythm. Okay, so you get the idea of how the upbeat being picked out by a rhythm instrument gives us that reggae feel, and the skank is that essential element really to create reggae or to create ska if you're into that as well. So, but normally, like I said, it's a rhythm instrument, so it's not going to be just one note, it's going to be a chord. So let me just pull out some notes here and turn them into chords. Okay, let's see how that sounds. Okay, quite like that. It's kind of jazzy, which goes with the vibe of the bass and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to stick with that. But I'm not having it just 4 times like that. I'm going to extend it out, change it a little bit. So I should take this chord and copy it a 3rd time on beat 2 of bar 2. And then we're going to have a bit of a variation for the last one. Okay, so let's see how that sounds. Okay, that's good enough for me for today. I'm not trying to do anything super special or fantastic today, just give you the basic idea, so don't judge me too harshly. So, the next thing to think about this is that these upbeats are kind of percussive, and the way to get them really nice and percussive, obviously the piano is a melodic instrument, but it's good to make these notes really short. So that's the next thing we're going to do. So, here we go. I'm going to cut these back. Quite nice and short, I think. Let's see if that's too short. I think that's really good. A final thing I would do when working in a DAW is that I would shift these notes a little bit, because when people play piano, they don't exactly strike the keys at exactly the same time. Maybe some precision pianists do. But reggae is not genuinely that type of music, so I'm actually going to take off the snap and I'm going to kind of move these a little bit. I don't think you have to do too much, maybe one a bit forward, one a bit back, just to kind of emulate how the fingers are coming down at not exactly the same time, and it really gives it that feeling of being a chord. We could also change the velocities a little bit. I'm not going to bother with that today, but maybe it's something for you to think about. And I'm just taking it today that this pianist has a pattern in his fingers, that the first finger comes in early and the third a little bit late. Okay, so let's just listen to the difference with that. Okay, that's good enough for me. Another thing you can think about is, because this is reggae and not ska, obviously ska is a bit faster and it is just the upbeats. But with reggae you can do a little bit more around these upbeats. So what you can do, you can have a double upbeat. So that would be just taking this, and this time I'm going to put the snap well, I'm not going to put the snap on. I don't guess I don't need to. I'm going to paste in a double. That's interesting. Let me try again. I press copy, go back here. So we're on beat. Yeah, that's right. I just didn't quite do it right. Pull it back so it's about the same. So now we're looking at between beats 2 and 3, beat 2.2, and these secondary bits of the skank I would lower down a little bit like that. So now I'm going to copy that one and put it here. Do the same here, and then copy this one, and then we've got a kind of double one. Pull this one down as well, if we remember, to keep our second velocities a bit lower. Okay, so let's have a listen to how that sounds. And obviously the other thing you can do is not have them all double. You could alternate. It's for you to play around with, but let's alternate between a double and a single like this. Okay, so that's basically the skank. So, the last thing we're going to look at today is the bubble. The bubble also picks out the upbeat, but what it does is it plays a few notes around it to make the upbeat a little bit more complex. This is another interesting facet of reggae and one worth exploring. Of course, there are lots of ways that you can have a bubble and there are lots of things you can do with it. Today, I'm just going to show you the most common and well-used one. It's for you to experiment with, listen to other reggae tunes, maybe find variations on it. Once you have this basic one, you're going to be able to get it and modify it yourself. So let's just look at the basic one. So the first thing I'm going to do is just pick out a chord on the upbeat, just in the same way as the skank did. Different chord though, something that complements it. That's the basic idea of it. But also what I'm going to do is pick out a note just 2 steps before and 2 steps after. So I would say yes. And do that again, repeat that here. Okay. So these move by themselves very quickly. Okay, so now let's do a similar thing where we have 3 of the same and then a variation. So same in the next bar, and then let's create our variation here. These got a bit shorter, but that's okay. Perfect. Let's lengthen them for now. Okay, so let's hear what that sounds like. If that sounds any good. So I think that sounds alright. Okay, so here's one thing I would do is, these are also already a little bit short. I'm not going to mess around with the same thing with the piano, pulling them off the beat to make them a little bit more organic. But what I will do is, I think, making these second ones a little bit more shorter. These already are a bit more shorter for some reason. But let's just pull them back a little bit and make them a little bit shorter. And there we go. Let's listen to that. Yeah, and I like that. So that's all for today. Once you've got those 4 elements, then obviously you can start adding all kinds of things. Some reggae has melody, other reggae doesn't really bother with melody, but it's all these kind of elemental bits that are jumping in and out. There's nothing that's really a constant drone in most styles of reggae, and I think these 4 elements really show everything that you need to start to build your own reggae rhythm. Okay, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed that. Take care. If you want to support the channel, you know how to do that. That's all. Thank you. Goodbye.